The tension around Erebor grows as the Mountain Kingdom stands on the edge of war. After the dragon Smaug leaves the lonely mountain in a furious rage, he flies straight toward Lake Town, driven by revenge. Bard sits trapped in a cell when Smaug arrives, but chaos gives him a chance to escape. When Smaug begins burning the town, Bard rushes to find his children and get them to safety. The destruction forces everyone onto the boats while Smaug circles overhead, setting houses and walkways on fire. Bard climbs a tower with his last black arrow, guided by his son who helps steady the bow. Smaug mocks him from the air, believing himself unstoppable. When the dragon exposes the broken scale on his chest, Bard releases the arrow and it pierces the weak spot. Smaug crashes down in a massive burst of fire and water, ending the terror in an instant but leaving Lake Town in ruins. The survivors look to Bard as a leader, and although he has no interest in titles, they trust him to guide them. Meanwhile, Thorin and the dwarves realize that with Smaug dead, all eyes will soon turn to the treasure under the mountain. But Thorin is changing. He feels the pull of the gold, especially the Arkenstone, the gem he believes proves his right to rule. The rest of the company watches him search day and night through the treasure piles, ignoring food, rest or the needs of anyone else. Bilbo sees the madness slowly taking root and fears what will happen once armies demand their share. At the same time, word spreads across Middle-earth that the dragon is gone. Elves, dwarves and men begin to move toward Erebor with their own claims. The mountain becomes the center of a storm no one can avoid. At Dol Guldur, Gandalf remains imprisoned by the necromancer, but Galadriel, Elrond and Saruman launch a desperate rescue. They confront the dark power and drive it away, revealing that the necromancer is Sauron. Forced to retreat, he slips back toward Mordor to rebuild his forces, leaving the world in a. Bard leads the survivors of Lake Town toward the empty ruins near Dale, trying to give them shelter from the cold. Winter is closing in fast and the people have lost almost everything. They look to him for guidance, even though he never wanted to be a leader. Thranduil arrives soon after with his elven host, bringing supplies and order, but he also brings old demands. He still wants the white gems that once belonged to his people, and he believes the treasure in Erebor rightfully holds them. Bard approaches Thorin with a simple request. His people need help and a fair share of the treasure to rebuild their shattered homes. But Thorin is no longer the dwarf he was when they set out on the quest. The gold has a hold on him. He refuses every request, sealing the mountain and accusing anyone who challenges him of betrayal. His company watches him slip deeper into suspicion. He barely eats or rests, spending hours pacing through the golden piles, searching endlessly for the Arkenstone. Bilbo carries a quiet fear that none of them want to say out loud. The longer Thorin stays in the mountain, the more the madness grows. Bilbo still has the Arkenstone hidden in his coat, the one thing Thorin wants more than any other treasure. He knows giving it to him now would only make things worse. Outside, frustration grows. Bard and Thranduil join forces, not out of greed, but because they can't let Thorin's stubbornness trap everyone in a pointless standoff. They send Gandalf to speak with him, hoping he might break through the madness, but Thorin pushes him away too. Reinforcements arrive when Dáin Ironfoot marches toward the mountain with a dwarf army behind him. The elves and men block the path, and the tension is sharp enough to set off a battle with one wrong move. Bilbo realizes that if someone doesn't act soon, the mountain will become the center of a war that none of them wanted. Late at night, he slips out of Erebor, nervous but determined. He meets Bard and Thranduil in. Azog's forces hit the valley with crushing force. The ground shakes under the charge of wargs and armored trolls. The sky fills with the roar of drums and war cries as orc legions pour into every open path. In a single moment the standoff between dwarves, elves and men turns into a united front, because none of them can survive unless they fight together. Dáin's warriors lock their shields, holding the first wave. Thranduil's elves leap forward with quick strikes, cutting down orcs before they can break the line. Bard's men fight through exhaustion, placing themselves wherever the shields begin to split. The battlefield becomes a maze of chaos. Orcs crash against dwarven armor. Elves fire arrows over the lines, hitting anything that threatens to break through. Men drag the wounded to safety while trying to keep their own fear in check. Above all the noise, Gandalf and the commanders try to make sense of the shifting ground, but every plan changes the moment it's formed. Bolg leads a second army around the cliffs, tightening the noose so the defenders are attacked from two sides at once. Inside Erebor, Thorin watches the war from the gate. The gold sickness still clings to him, but seeing his allies fight while he stands behind stone walls pulls at something deeper. His company struggles with the same conflict. They feel shame rising in their chests as their friends bleed outside. At last, after a tense argument, Thorin snaps out of the fog that has held him for so long. He realizes how far he has fallen and that he cannot undo his mistakes by hiding. He gathers his company and leads them out with a roar that shakes the mountainside. Their charge rips through the battlefield, energizing the defenders. The sight of the company of Thorin Oakenshield storming into the fight lifts spirits everywhere. They crush orc lines and push toward Ravenhill, where Azog commands the attack. Thorin knows the only way to end the battle is to kill the commander. Fili, Kili and Dwali. Bilbo reaches the top of Ravenhill with shaking hands, calling out for Thorin. The cold cuts through his clothes as he stumbles across broken ice and scattered weapons. When he finds Thorin lying in the snow, the sight nearly stops his breath. Thorin is alive, but only barely. Bilbo kneels beside him, trying to keep his voice steady even though he can feel the moment slipping away. Thorin looks at him with tired eyes, the madness gone, replaced by regret. He apologizes for every harsh word, admitting he let greed turn him against his friends. Bilbo tells him there is nothing to forgive. Thorin smiles faintly, choosing to believe him, and then his strength fades. He dies with the wind whispering around them and the mountain he fought so hard to reclaim behind him. The rest of the company mourns in heavy silence. Balin and Dwalin, who had followed him since childhood, struggle to accept that the line of Durin has fallen. Fili and Kili are gone. Thorin is gone. Only the echoes of their bravery remain. Bard takes charge of organizing the survivors and distributing supplies. He moves through the wounded with calm focus, trying to keep people warm and fed. His efforts give everyone a sense of direction when the world feels broken. Thranduil retrieves the white gems he came for, but he speaks more gently now, recognizing the weight of the day's losses. The bitterness that once drove him seems small next to the grief surrounding them. Legolas stands apart from the others, looking out toward the distant hills. His father tells him that his path lies elsewhere and that he should seek a ranger known as Strider. Legolas leaves quietly, carrying the pain of the battle with him. Tauriel stays behind, overwhelmed by the death of Kili. She tells Thranduil that her grief is real, no matter what anyone thinks of her bond with a dwarf. Thranduil doesn't argue. He only tells her that love, even when brief, is never wasted. When the smoke clears and the bodies are buried, life slowly